Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Today's guest on Better Than I Found It is Ole Miss head coach Chris Malloy. Now, Chris has had a lot of success in his 11 years at Ole Miss, including coaching an NCAA individual champion, a Fred Haskins Award winner, as well as many other All-Americans. But Chris's team did something earlier this spring that the school had never seen before, and that was got his team ranked number 1 in the country at one point. As I currently record this, they are number 4 in the country, having basically the best year they've ever had at Ole Miss. He's a great interview, a great guy, a wonderful coach, and I know you'll enjoy this interview. All right, Better Than I Found It, listeners. Join me in welcoming Ole Miss coach Chris Malloy to the Better Than I Found It podcast today. Chris, it's nice to finally get you on this podcast. I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Now I know I've made it. I'm finally on.
You've finally made it. You've made it as a coach. You could retire right now, a Hall of Famer.
That's what I'm thinking
of this interview. But no, seriously, it's tough to get to every coach. You know, we have such a small community, but we all know each other pretty well. And it's timing a lot of times because your schedule is busy, mine's busy. I'm glad we were able to carve out an hour here on a Sunday afternoon. But thanks for joining me today. It should be great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. I'm catching you on a pretty good run here. Your team is pretty awesome right now, which is great, which I want to hear all about. But, you know, on that note, you're doing what Alan Bratton and a few other guys are doing, and that is coaching at your alma mater. That's got to give you a great sense of pride, a great sense of, you know, feeling of being back in Oxford as the coach. So talk about that pride and how much you feel about doing that for a living at your alma mater.
Yeah, and a great question, and it's certainly unique. And not something, you know, a lot of people say, well, this is a dream come true, or is, you know, this, you know, always in the works. I never even thought about it. Because you know how tough jobs are to get, and you don't know what that path is going to look like, you know, or any of that. So I'm ecstatic that the timing worked and to get back and do this. And you're right, it is really cool. You know, when I was coaching at Florida State, it's not like you're less invested, you know, more invested, but, you know, Florida State, you know, hey, we were all in and that was cool. But I always still had Ole Miss. I root for Ole Miss because obviously I went to school here. And then when I got to University of South Florida, it was the same. You know, I loved being a Bull, and I still am. That's the other cool part of it, right, is I'm still invested in those two programs. But to come back here, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't extra special. Sometimes it's probably even a little more pressure than it would be. I think all of us, the competitors that we are, we would want to do well no matter where we were, and we're going to put that, you know, pressure on ourselves, you know, to be the best we can be. But, you know, once you get back in your alma mater, you're like, okay, I've really got to succeed here, and I have to do a good job. You know, you don't want to let not just the fan base down, but shoot, you know, all the people that are around you that have been around you, you know, since college. So certainly extra special. To say a dream come true, I don't know. It was never really a dream, as I mentioned. You know, you always try to, you know, keep your options open, and you don't know which door, in terms of coaching, is you know, going to open next. But it's been special.
Well, there are not that many jobs opening up every year. You've been at Ole Miss exactly as long as I've been at Baylor, and you know, I'd love to stay here forever. You'd love to stay there forever. You just don't ever know what it's going to be. But you know, I think when you look at it, you're about as hotty-toddy, gosh almighty, as a guy could be. I mean, you are truly Ole Miss. That's very apparent. The way I hear you talk, the way I see you tweet, you love your university. But what got you there to begin with? I mean, like, what was the background that got you in Oxford to begin with? That's been a while.
Yeah, it's wild. And so I'm from Virginia originally, and I was going to go to school. I was going to stay in that part of the country, but I was going to go to UNC, Chapel Hill. I just kind of set on it. I had a couple of friends that were going to school there, and one of my dad's business partners had gone to Ole Miss, and they had invited me down. So you got to go visit Ole Miss. You got to go visit Ole Miss, and I'm going. What is Ole Miss? Where is that? I said, well, Mississippi. I said, well, okay, I'm not going there. Like, I'm not going to leave this part of the country and go to the state of Mississippi, and didn't know anything about it. And I remember my dad said, listen, I'll take you out of school on Friday. You can miss, Friday of school. And I think I actually even got out like half day on that Thursday. I said, well, shoot, I'll go anywhere if you're going to let me out of school. Like sign me up. So we came down. I'll never forget. Flew into Memphis, Tennessee. Late at night, we're driving from Memphis, to Ole Miss. If you've ever done the drive, there's not a whole lot between, here and there. So it's like a, yeah, scene out of Deliverance, right? I'm like, where are we going? My dad's saying the same thing. Pull up in this town, at midnight that night. And I'll never forget, Coach. I tell people this all the time. On the front steps the next morning of the student union, and I'm eating a chicken biscuit. I had never had a chicken biscuit, so that was great, right? I mean, that was positive. Uh, and just looking out over, all the probably the co-eds that were, walking to and from class, and I'll never forget. I got goosebumps thinking about it. I looked at my dad and I said, yeah, this is where I'm going to go to school. And he looked at me, he said, yeah, son, that probably a good choice, but we should probably meet the coach first. I said, Dad, he's going to have to really screw this one up, for me not to, come to school here. So the rest is history. And, it's funny. You do it as well. Like, you get so many recruits that are in your office and they sit down and we don't ever talk anyone into coming to Ole Miss. Right. But I just try to explain to them the light bulb's going to go on somewhere, and it might go on a few different places, but it's really going to go on, uh, somewhere, over the others. And the light bulb went off for me in my head, and it was a pretty clear decision, and one that I don't regret.
Well, I've heard a lot of recruiting stories like that where a player will tell me, that's when it happened when I first walked on campus. Johnny Kiefer told me that the first meeting he and I had together on campus, he'd already decided he was coming to Baylor. And I asked him later, well, why in the world did you make me recruit you for another 2 years if you already knew? He said, well, I just
Yeah.
wanted you to work for it. But, having been an alum, though, don't you find it a lot easier to speak with passion to a recruit, to his parents about where you are? Isn't that a lot easier?
It's so much easier, and again, to walk them through my experience, and again, I'm quick to tell them, because this was my experience, and because I thought Ole Miss and Oxford, Mississippi was the place for me, and which it was. That does not mean it's the place for you. I just use my experience to tell you how I got here, but you're right. Um, the people that gravitate towards here. Um, are like me. And so it's easy if they end up coming to school here and then this ends up being the right fit, it's pretty easy for me to speak on it.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. You had a really successful college career there. You were team captain. So I'm going to ask a question about that. Were you designated by the coach to be the team captain? Was it team vote? Was it a combination? How did that work? And then how do you do that now as a head coach?
Yeah, and I got to thinking about that earlier. The I believe that was a coach designation. So more often than not, for me, it was, if when you were a senior, that's who was probably going to be, a captain. So, that was natural. And I've done it a lot of different ways since I've been coaching, and I've never come up with the perfect answer for that. You love for seniors to take charge and just be the natural leader, but that's not always the case. And I tell you, I think we've just gone to a mode that we haven't designated team captains and we've let it happen organically. I think right now at this stage of the year for this team, let's say, we probably have our two guys that are would be team captains, and I think that's pretty obvious with our team. But part of my thought process, with that, coach, is I didn't want it to um, stifle growth or another player. Maybe it's a younger player. Maybe it's a freshman that's a natural born leader. It's a natural born captain. Maybe it's a sophomore that on paper we wouldn't think would naturally be one of our team captains, but it kind of allows him to speak up, and we encourage that a lot. So I haven't figured that part out, of what works from a team captain standpoint. I think again, we let it happen organically and let the guys decide. But how do you
Well,
guys do it?
well, I mean, that's basically what we're doing here now. I have had team captains occasionally that I designated. We had a vote one year. When I was a high school coach, I always had a team captain voted on by the players. When I got to Oklahoma State and was working for Mike Holder, I said, okay, how are we going to decide our team captain this year? And he says, I don't do that. And I said, you don't do that? He goes, no. He said, those should happen. Use the term organically. He says, but those kids literally emerge. Your leaders will emerge, and we'll know midway through the year who our team captain is. Most of the time, he's going to be one of our best players, most of the time. But, you can't just designate a kid a team captain and then he isn't a good leader. That's not good for your team at all. You're almost rudderless at that point. So
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think,
I mean, like in South Florida, I just remember as we were building that program, Chase Kepka, who was a freshman and a sophomore, by the time, especially, I mean, as a freshman, he wasn't afraid to speak up. He was certainly one of our better players. But by the time he was a sophomore, he was a captain, and he was one of our leaders. So that's probably one of the case in points that where I stopped designating it myself.
yeah, I was thinking about Auburn. It would be hard to say the freshman college player of the year, Jackson Coyven, wouldn't at least have been considered a captain by the players because he was by far the best player. He led them to a national championship. I mean, there's so many things he does well as a leader. I don't know if he was a team captain. He's a sophomore this year, playing great again. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I think they do emerge. So I really believe that.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
so you mentioned Chase Kepka. We're going to talk about his older brother here in just a bit, which I want to talk about a lot about Brooks. But um, you know, tell me this: am I correct in saying you played in the national championship at Hazeltine in '99?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I was there as the assistant coach, and it got breezy a couple of days, but pretty much it was pretty decent weather that week. And tell me if I'm not remembering this incorrectly, but the third hole was a par five, dogleg left, about 600 and some odd yards. It was a monster. But truly, if you missed the fairway and played from the rough with your second shot, it was a physical impossibility to hit the hole in three. You could not hit it in regulation because you couldn't advance the sand wedge far enough to get up the hill far enough. Am I right?
So it's so funny that you'd mentioned that hole, and I tried, when the USAM was there, this year, I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
walk people through this. So that was back in the day where we had two practice rounds.
Yep.
Um, and I'll never forget, I got up and I wasn't a big guy, but I hit it far enough. Let's
Sure.
let's say that. I hit a driver as hard as I could hit it. I hit a three wood about as hard as I can hit. I mean, just
Yep.
as good as it can be. And I had a 6 iron into that green. The
Did you
next
hit the?
day, it warmed up a little bit, and I hit a really good driver, 3 wood, 7 iron into that green. So you're right. If there was zero margin for error, like
Yeah.
especially back then, and I was trying to compare it to
There's
guys
no
going through there
comparison.
this summer, and I was watching. I'm like, well, yeah, this is a lot different than I remember this whole. But you're 100% right. And I did the first round. I missed the fairway, and I went, "Oh God, this is going to be a while." And I bogeyed that hole. It would, and you're right. The second day that year, it was super windy.
Mm-hmm.
It was a totally different golf course. But yeah, that course with the technology we had back then was a lot different.
Yeah, that was. one of the last NCAAs before the Pro V1 ball. So I think there was one more at Auburn the next year. But pretty much it was still in the old era where you didn't hit it anywhere. And
Yeah,
yeah, but I just remember thinking to myself, there was no humanly possible way of getting to the green in regulation if you missed the fairway. You were not getting there. So,
no, and I don't remember that week. I mean, it was so long ago. I don't remember people going for that green
mm-mm.
in two. I just don't like it. Just wasn't a thing.
Yeah. Maybe nowadays they can take a different line and they just hit it so far it's a joke. So
So
maybe they
far,
could today.
they're
But anyway.
they're this year. When I noticed they were getting it so far up there, they're landing on a little bit of a downslope.
Mhm.
Um, which is actually about where my 3-wood was rising for my second shot at that time. So yeah, they hit a different little speed slot than we were then.
Yeah, I think they play the game a little differently. They just do, and that's the way it is. So you finished college. How long before you got into coaching?
Yeah, I think it was 5 years. I moved to Charleston, South Carolina. And my dream was I was going to turn professional and play golf. I got a wrist injury, but I realized really quickly, like, I the Jansons weren't there. I watched too many guys that were better than me, um, that were a little bit older than I was that, didn't really sniff having success. And I just said, I probably need to get in the real world and go from there. So I was working out on Kiowa Island, got into real estate, and I enjoyed, real estate at that time. But I just remember it was, right before the bust, and money was easy, everything was great, and I'm going, I don't think this can last forever. Like I think,
It did.
I think I got to get a more stable line of business, and yeah, actually, I ended up down at Florida State.
Mhm.
One of my old neighbors in Atlanta ran Host Communications, so they had all the ticketing, marketing rights, for different athletic departments, and Florida State was one of them. And he said, "Hey, we have a position down here. I think you'd be great at this. You need to give it a try." And I went down and interviewed and liked it and enjoyed that job. And Trey Jones, I had known Trey Jones um, since I was playing in college and had stayed in touch with him. And he was a very close friend. And he had been there a couple of years already. And so I got down, did the job, enjoyed it for 1 year, probably a little bit less than 1 year. And his assistant job, Landry Mahan,
Oh yeah.
moved on. And I found myself, even when I was doing the other job, the sales job, I was like the volunteer assistant coach, and I was always out there, especially when they were on the road. I'd go play or practice with the guys, and that was my passion. And yeah, when Landry left and that job came open, I went after it, full bore.
Yeah. It was a good decision on your part. Landry, most people don't know this about him because in what would have been your senior year at Auburn, we won the national championship in a playoff over Georgia Tech. And Charles Hallett shot 23 under par that week. He set the NCAA record by 6.
Wild.
And so Charles got the credit for pretty much leading us to that title. And I completely agree with that. But Landry finished 13th that week individually. And I think that was part of another thing that got us over the hump.
He
So,
was a player.
it was a great. Actually, pound for pound, he hit it a mile. He was
Mhm.
a very small guy, but he hit it a long way. So tell me how that whole process went.
Yeah, I went, as I mentioned, I went after, the job, and he and his wife, Kathy, were like our best friends, down there. So, we were really, really close. And yeah, I begged him for the job, and I'll never forget, Jonathan Dismute, Diz was viewing for it as well. He just finished playing. And yeah, I didn't take anything for granted. I kind of had my ducks in a row and went in. It was a true job interview. And he even tried to talk me out of it a couple of times, just saying, "Hey, listen, I'm not sure this is the greatest thing." And it really made me earn it. And the rest is history. And Trey and Kathy were both in our wedding. Trey's the best man in my wedding. I owe so much to him, and yeah, it was a great learning experience.
Yeah, you mentioned Jonathan Dismuke, who's obviously the men's golf coach at the University of Houston. But how small is this college golf world? I mean,
Wild.
like you just run into somebody, well, you know somebody. There's no way you can't get to somebody through somebody you know every time. I mean, you're not more than one phone text or call away from touching anybody in college golf you want to.
Yeah, it's like, two degrees of separation no matter where you go.
Absolutely. Well, Trey is one of the true legends in our business. He's done an amazing job. I remember his first so-called big recruit was Drew Kittleson from
Yep.
Arizona, and he followed that up immediately with Brooks Koepka. And you got to coach both. But tell me about Brooks. Well, first of all, tell me what you learned from Trey. I mean, you're a brand new coach, so you were kind of green. You knew what you had as a college coach or maybe a high school coach, but you didn't know much about coaching. What did he teach you? He had to give you some really good information.
Yeah, everything. I mean, it was, I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and I tell you, one of the best things he ever did for me that I try to do for my assistants is he let me figure out a lot of things on my own, right? He'd say, okay, this is what I want done. Go figure out how to do it. And when I'd ask, for guidance, he'd go, well, why don't you go figure it out? And it just helped me figure things out. I mean, exactly that, really. And one of the reasons that I like to do it, with my assistant coaches is maybe I've been stuck in a way of doing certain things, and they may show me something. They may show me a better way to do that same task. And I like to think that I did that, a few different times for Trey. And certainly my assistants over the years have taught me, a lot of how to do things. But I think you help channel. Anyone that's been around me realizes, I'm gung ho and I want to be a go-getter. I always seem to be going a million miles a minute. He helped channel a lot of that and keep me on task. He's so organized, just uber organized on everything that yeah, he helped in so many different ways. And just from the little things of, I think when you get out there as a young coach and you have a bad day, a guy just bombs and shoots 77, 78 or something, and you kind of want to hop their ass or whatever it may be. And one of the like early lessons he ever taught me was like, no, like now's not the time. Like, hey, why are you mad at John? Well, he didn't do this, he didn't get these up and down and shot 77. He's like, what? John wasn't trying to shoot 77. Like if John was lazy, if he had a bad attitude, if process oriented, he didn't do a very good job. Yeah, you can hop him, you can do that, but if it's because it just wasn't his day, but he did the things that we've asked of him that right, then now's not the time. Maybe and I think what he was really good at too is we would have like our greatest round of the year and greatest tournament or whatever it may be, and out of nowhere he came in and just got on the guys. Like he found something, and it was he was on them. But he was so right. It's like that was the time. He's like, man, now is your time to really be hard on these guys. They're on top of the world. Like, that you're not taking all that away from them, right? If you knock them down a peg and teach them something in that regard, now is your time to really be tougher on them. Not when they're down in the dumps. That's one that always just stood out to me, over the rest.
Well, a couple of things you said there. One, him letting you figure a lot of things out yourself. Mike Holder literally did that completely with me. And when I became the head women's golf coach, I was asking him, who do you think ought to hire, a female or a male for my assistant coach? He said, you're not getting an assistant coach for a year. I said, I'm not what? He goes, no, this coaching women is going to be different for you. And you're going to have to figure out a lot of things out on your own, just like I had you figured out when you were my assistant coach brand new. And I think there is some genius in that. It's like it makes you more resourceful and you have to figure things out.
Absolutely. I mean, you got you think about it's no different, than going from you know a small school, Division 3 school, tiny Division 1 school, whatever, and then getting to where you have a lot more resources. Man, you learn so much at that previous job. Like I learned so much at South Florida because I didn't have the same resources that maybe we had at Florida State and that that we have here. And that's why stints like that are just crucial for development.
I agree. Pardon me. All right, let's talk about Brooks Koepka. I Brooks has kind of something hang over my head ever since recruiting, and he says I never returned an email that he had sent way back, and I kept on looking for that email, couldn't find it. But interesting story. He was playing in the Ping Invitational in Stillwater, Oklahoma, his senior year, so he hadn't quite signed a letter of intent. Would be signing in another month, and um, one of my good friends from childhood was a member at Karsten Creek, and the AJGA committee would always get as many kids as needed housing. They'd find them in Stillwater. And my buddy Jeff McMillan, he and his wife kept kids every single year. Well, that particular year, they kept Bud Colley and Brooks. So I thought that was kind of cool. Two really, great junior players are getting ready to go play college golf the next year. Well, so after the Ping Invitational was over, Jeff asked me and my wife Pam, "Would you like to go out to dinner with Robin and I tonight?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, meet us at Eskimo Joe's at 7 o'clock." So I sit down at Eskimo Joe's, and the young man sits across the table from me, and it's Brooks Koepka. And I go, "Oh, hello, Brooks. What are you doing here? Why are you at this dinner with me?" And it was like, well, I couldn't get a flight out tonight, so I'm staying one more night with the McMillans. I said, "Well, Jeff didn't tell me that." So I got Trey on the phone immediately and said, "Trey, now I just want you to know you're going to hear that I had dinner with Brooks Koepka in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Just want you to know, totally innocent, caught off guard here."
I do remember something along those lines. Yeah,
You do remember something about that? Yeah, I'm just thinking to
something
myself,
about that. But I also remember
golly.
we trusted you on that deal.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but I was on Trey's phone immediately after that. So, all right,
What's surprising? I mean, think about how many times stuff like that just happens. You're like, whoa, like how am I in this situation? Like I'm not trying to do this.
I'm not trying to do this. I'm not trying to. And he's a pretty darn good player I had dinner with that night, anyway.
Right.
So tell me something about Brooks that makes him special. I know what I see from a distance, and I've watched. I love the fact that he's maybe single-handedly the most high self-belief of any player I've ever seen. Uber talented, all of those things. Is there something I'm missing? Is there more to him than that? Is it what was Bruce like?
No, I mean you hit the nail on the head there. His sense of self-belief has always been there. The story that I always try to tell people, not a story, but that I think would surprise people about Brooks Koepka is they watch him go through, playing these majors and go through everything and just like no emotion and just, they're like, oh my gosh. I mean, like that is something he was just born with, I guess. And that is so cool. And it's so far from the truth. Brooks by nature is as big of a hothead as you've ever been around. And when he got to college, he was a major hothead throughout his entire freshman year, a major hothead. And he got a little better, throughout college, certainly with it. But, once he turned pro is really when he sat down and made a conscious decision of, okay, if I'm going to be really successful, at this, I need to change my ways and I do need to turn into, a lot more even keel guy, especially on the golf course and not let my emotions get to me. And that's hard. I mean, how many talented players have you coached and been around that just could never get past that? They could never get past their feelings. They were just always a hothead, whatever. And let their emotions get the best of them and never made it. Or if they did make it, it was a fraction of probably how far or how successful that they should have been or could have been down the road. So that's why I'm so impressed with Brooks that he did that, has maintained that to this day, and I'm really proud of him. That people can look at him naturally. I even find myself, when he's playing in a major, and I'll record it, and
Mhm.
and save it for myself, maybe save it, send it to my team, send it to Brooks, I've been so impressed with him to be able to do that. But I think that's probably the most surprising thing, people could learn about him, and the thing that ultimately I was most impressed about. I mean, physically he was great. You saw him, a junior golfer, college golfer, professional. I mean, like he's we knew he was special in that regard for sure.
And that's another thing that between him and Bryson DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson, who's kind of sort of halfway disappeared, um, we need the best players in the world back together because a guy like Brooks Koepka needs to be playing every week against the best players, not just
Yeah.
majors.
Well, I mean, as I told you, to try to like record something on TV or use it as an example and show my guys, like where am I going to find that now? Like where am I going to find that with these live guys? It's so important to our sport. You're 100% right.
Yeah, we'll get it back. We'll get it back. So it was a great experience coaching him. Others, you guys had a really, really good team while you were there. Trey was in the middle of sort of building the crescendo, if you will, of what would go on to be a top 15 program every single year, which is where he has it now in great place. But you left there and went to USF, so South Florida. You said you're still proud to be a Bull, which is great. Uh, I coached against some of your teams there. You guys were really strong. And let's talk about the 2013 team that won the Big East championship. Anytime you win a championship, whether it be conference, regionals, nationals, whatever it may be, there's a certain connectivity you have with those players for life. Who were the players in that team, if you can remember them all by name? And if not, uh, what kind of connection do you have that team?
Yeah, and it was great, and it was a group of guys other than one that I actually recruited. So I think anytime you do that too, you're going, okay, these guys bought into my vision. When I took over there, we were outside the top 200 in the country. We had no momentum. We had nothing. So to build it from scratch, truly from scratch, was you know made it even more special. But the one, I think the only person we had on that team that I didn't recruit, who was just such a vital piece to that team, was Devin Hernandez. Devin, I think it was a sophomore when I first got there, so he was great. Bought in totally, and he was the guy that we put all our recruits with on recruiting visits, and just loved the program. Did anything you'd ask, but so we had Devin Hernandez. Um, we had Trey Valentine. We had
I
Brandon
recruited Trey. I love
Collins.
that guy.
Yeah, Brandon Collins, Chase Koepka, and I believe Richard James was a part of that. I don't know if, yeah, I think that was his first year. He was a JUCO transfer. So yeah, it was a good group, and again, guys that bought into what we were doing, and that was a fun one.
You feel like the success you had there sort of made it a little easier to become a Power Five conference coach? I mean, if you guys had not been any good there, it might have been a little tougher to get the job you have now.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, certainly as we were going through the process, I was not going to get this job if I would have gone down there and floundered and not been successful. And I think I was just as fortunate as you could possibly be that we had that much success right away. In a 4-year period. So very, very fortunate, in a lot of regards on that one. But yeah, it taught me so much. And I think with winning, the Big East championship, having a really successful team, that following year, when we had moved into the first year of the American Athletic Conference, um, yeah, it just gave me the confidence that, yeah, I can do it. I mean, going into that USF job and maybe even 2 years into it, I was still pretty unsure, like as much as I tried to seem confident, I think, I had a lot of question marks for myself. So that success certainly helped.
We talked about self belief of Brooks Koepka, but every great athlete, every great coach, you still have self doubts in there. Can I do this? Am I doing it the right way? will this breed success? Will I, what's it going to look like on the other end? Because it's uncertain. You don't even know. So,
Yeah.
um, so that success obviously led to, bigger and better things. And here you are at Ole Miss. You're into your 11th year. I'm 11 years into Baylor. It's a good time for both of us. But let's talk about your third, maybe fourth year, 2016, 17, special year, national championship that year played at Rich Harvest Farms. But you had a very special player on the team, Braden Thorntonberry, was nationally obviously very well known. He was a Fred Haskins Award winner that year, which is the Heisman Trophy of college golf, and he was the NCAA individual champion at Rich Harvest Farms. That has to be a like a watershed year for the program, just on two things that had never happened before.
Yeah, you're right. And he made me look like a decent coach. It was awesome. Like, yeah, he was a sophomore at that time, and our team kind of came out of nowhere. And it was one of those. I was telling somebody this the other day. It was really unique. We didn't have the greatest fall tournament schedule in terms of strength of schedule. We kind of played in, couple like here in the Southeast, and I just wasn't sure what we were going to be as a team. And we went out and just started winning. And these guys, all of a sudden, they didn't know any better. They're like, okay, this is what we're supposed to do. And Braden Thornberry, who was a sophomore, was the same deal. And he came from, a background where he wasn't, as much of an AJGA and, kind of a lot of the elite, golf events. He grew up, just down the road here and played in everything that he could. And, but he learned how to win. Like, that was comfortable for him. You couldn't tell him any different. So by the time he got into whether it be a major junior event or, especially when he got to college, like going out and winning, or if he had the lead with 9 holes left, he wasn't going to get nervous about that. That's just kind of the position he was supposed to be in. So, to watch that year unfold, for us to kind of come out of nowhere, get up to Rich Harvest Farms. He started that day back. I think Scotty Scheffler was leading going in the final day there. And he was playing in the group in front of us, and he kind of folded a little bit over the first few holes. So it got really quickly. And again, Braden never blinked. And
Do you remember
made
what
some
he
really
shot that
clutch
last
putts.
round? You remember what he shot the last round? Because it was blowing. It was a tough day.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say it was 67.
That would have been amazing.
It would have been amazing. And I'll never forget the thing with that round. There were a couple of things that stood out to me on that one that were funny. And anyone that's been to Rich Harvest Farms could probably appreciate this. But, as you mentioned, it was just blowing on the back 9. Obviously, the TV cameras had really, started to move over to us by about the 11th, 12th hole. And he couldn't hit a green. I mean, like, he was, missing greens with wedges, and, would chip it to 20 feet and made all of them. Every single one of them. It was just mind blowing, coming down the stretch. But I'll never forget getting, to the 18th hole, and there was a wait on the 18th hole. And that week, we'd never hit as a group, the practice round or, the first couple of rounds. We never hit anything other than drivers there. So I'm sitting there, and I kind of started thinking about it on 17. Once he was on the green in a good spot, I went, wow, he's got about a 4-shot lead here, whatever it was at that time. I was like, what? Do I get him to hit an iron? And if I do, I can't get him to do that, because that's the first time he's ever hit anything other than a driver on this, golf hole. So, I'll never forget you sitting there, and, I sent Kyle Ellis, who was our assistant coach, and the guys were, in the gallery watching. I was like, half of you go up the right, half of you go up the left. Just find this ball wherever it goes. we gotta be the best spotters in the world. And, in true Braden fashion, he piped it down there, had like a, 6-iron into the green. And even that was another one. He was like, well, should I lay up? I was like, I don't think so. I don't think we'd ever lay up with a 6-iron. It'd be kind of awkward, at that point. So it was truly special. Kind of validated everything that, we knew we wanted to be. Um, and a guy like Braden, the things that we told him and tell all the other recruits that you can be successful here. You can win an NCAA championship here. So to do that and have that tangible evidence was incredible. A memory certainly will never forget.
Yeah, you shouldn't forget that. That's incredible. Not only to have an individual NCAA champion, but also Fred Haskins Award winner.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I looked at the list of the Fred Haskins Award a few years back. It's been a few years since I've looked at it, but at that time there was only one of the winners who didn't win on the PGA Tour. Only one. So all of the Fred Haskins Award winners go on to win in professional golf, and they do a great job with it. So it's obviously the best player in pro golf or in college golf that year, and I think that I think Braden probably is destined to do the same one day too. He's still playing, I know, right?
Yep, he's on the PGA Tour now, and he's taken a little bit longer to find his way to get onto the PGA Tour. But I tell people all the time, like there's no doubt in my mind he will be successful with it, and he's too good not to be.
Yeah, you mentioned something else. He didn't get nervous. He probably gets nervous. He just does a really good job of maybe like the old saying, do you get butterflies? Yeah, well, it's not trying not to get butterflies, it's to get them to fly in formation. That
Yeah,
that's what you got to do. And obviously he's learned how to do that too. So you had varying degrees of success, some really great seasons. Last year had the potential to be an amazing season. You guys, I think, got ranked at one point as high as number 3 nationally, probably the best that a Ole Miss team had ever been, and you were the number 2 seed at regional. Unfortunately, it didn't end the way you wanted, and every single coach that's coaching today has had a regional that just it threatened to erase all the great feelings of a season just because you didn't qualify, you didn't advance. But you don't look at last year that way, I would think. You got to look at it as a lot of great things happening.
yeah, and to your point, I think probably what made it a little bit easier, um, to swallow it all was that we had like was it 3 sophomores on that team. We had the team, everyone except one player coming back. And again, 3 of those guys were sophomores, so that made it a little bit easier to swallow. We said some weird stuff, kind of happened down the stretch. Michael Assasso, who's clearly our best player, one of the best players, I think probably should have been a first team All-American last year, but gets food poisoning or a virus at the night before the SEC championship. When our team teed off the SEC championship, I was still in the emergency room with them. Couldn't even play that first round, and never really recovered. It took him a few months. I mean, lost almost 18 pounds. Just things that you don't normally see happen. And we get shipped out, to Stanford, and guys, they fought their tails off. They did everything. We ended up missing it by 1. So even as everything that was thrown at us, still almost got through. I was really proud of that group, and told them that at the time. But yeah, just golf's so weird. We've had certain things. I don't think I ever want to see Stanford again for a regional. That's one year we were kind of back to cruising through, and we were a borderline team on getting through, but we were in a good position. And I had Sarut von Chysett hit a bird on the 16th hole of the final round. Never found the before that he lost his tee ball that was down the right center of the fairway. And no one ever found it. And then hit a ball playing his second ball, on that hole. So just things you can't kind of make up. But that's all right. I mean, I truthfully think last year's experience made us better. And it was something that we didn't run from. I asked a lot of coaches that I consider mentors how to handle it this year, right? I mean, do you discuss it? Do you act like it didn't happen? Whatever. Obviously, the players know what happened. They lived it. And I got a lot of mixed reactions. There are a lot of guys I really respect that said, "Don't even acknowledge it. Just go through this year." And I, I didn't approach it that way. It was the first thing that I spoke about. The first team meeting we had when we got back in the fall, and kind of what I told them, I just said, listen, right after it happened, all summer long, leading into to August when they got back, I just heard how things were going to be different and what they were going to do and why that wasn't going to happen. And hey, like, next year's here, like, and this is your opportunity. It's cool. Like, finally, all summer, it. I mean, you've had experiences like that before. The worst part about it is it's the end of the year, and you have all summer to think about it. There's not a day that goes by, let alone probably an hour that goes by that you're awake, that you don't think of that, at least as a coach. And it just eats at you, eats at you, eats at you. So I thought it was good news more than anything else of like, okay, we don't have to wait any longer. Like, now it matters. We're back and we can do it. But yeah, again, there's no doubt in my mind that made us a better team.
I was going to ask you that question, but you just answered it for me. So thank you.
Yeah.
Some coaches kind of shy away from it. The year it happened to us, we missed by a shot. We talked about it at the first team meeting. Guys, you don't want that feeling. Nobody wants it. We've been grinding and working toward pushing that feeling away. We don't want to have it again. And we were much better the next year. But that's the thing. You are much better this year. You guys won a couple of tournaments in a row here recently and became the number one ranked team in the country. I know that's the first time in Ole Miss history that's happened. Actually quite incredible to be able to do that. So talk about the climb, because I passed over about 7 or 8 years without even kind of getting into it. Just talk about the climb from wanting to be a competitive program to now here you are in a position to maybe win a national championship or maybe win a conference championship, but certainly contend for those. So what was the climb like?
Yeah, long, but good. And every year, especially in day and age that we're in now with the transfer portal, and it's just crazy. Every year is just so unpredictable and so different. So you do your best to lay what you think is a good foundation for your program, and what that looks like is different for everybody. And I think that's different for your program than it's for my program, whatever. And we set out, when I got this job, I wanted this to be my last job, and 20-year master plan, and we've discussed that. I've asked you a lot of things, about what you guys have done with facilities over there, and that was all part of it. Like, I could have gone and just revamped the roster, put a Band-Aid on this, right away, and brought in all new guys right when I got the job. But we had some key components that were here that that were some good players, that helped us and then build off that foundation. As far as facilities, we knew we had a long way to go. We probably had the worst facilities in the SEC, and but I knew that wasn't, we weren't going to snap our fingers and it was going to happen overnight. I remember Ross Bjork was, asked me, he's like, okay, we need to do the X, Y, and Z, and what do you want to do here? I'm like, I have no idea, man. I got to figure out. It took about a year to 2 years to get in, and especially that first year, to figure out what we used of our current facilities, and then what we didn't, what was maybe wasted space or what we needed to really revamp, and build off that, and then come up with a master plan, because it just always drove me up a wall, not just here, but like a lot of places you go, that you go in, you put a $300,000 putting green in. You're like, oh, this is great, this is awesome. And then 4 years later, when you want to do something even bigger, you go through and you tear that putting green down and build something, on top of it, or somewhat in its place. And that to me was just kind of wasted money. So we came up with an actual master plan of facilities, and just said, okay, what do we, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, however you wanted to phase it out. Money's just not growing on trees. You gotta figure it out. And went through and we decided that, that our outdoor area, like our practice driving range, and then what we call our short course was probably was priority number one. We could have tackled a building at that time. I just didn't feel my players got better with a new shiny building. I thought we got better with, state of the art practice facilities, and what we now have is the Tosh family short course. That's what got us better. So we attacked that. Now we're attacking the buildings and going through and redoing those currently. So it's I'm giving you a lot longer answer than you wanted, but between facilities and then players and growing your roster with guys that fit me and fit this place, and we just feel over the last couple of years we've gotten to that point.
Well, you've got a really wonderful team, and part of that is the returning players, but you also got a good transfer that we want to talk about here in just a little bit that has changed things up. But it sounds like to me the 20-year master plan is ongoing. It's ever formulating itself. It just keeps on growing and growing. And the beauty of you is you really don't want to have another job. You don't want to go someplace. A lot of guys might build something as quickly as they can to kind of create a little momentum and then find someplace else to go. You're at your final resting place as a coach, you hope.
Yep.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I still think of you as a young coach. Apologize, I do, but I mean, you're still in your 40s, so you're a young coach. And but on the other hand, you're also a veteran coach. You've been around a while. So what are the best changes, in your opinion, best changes you've seen in your coaching career that have improved everything about our situation?
I think that, I really do like the neutral site, of the NCAA championship. There's no perfect way to do it. Certainly if, in our perfect world, we want it on, Bermuda grass here in the Southeast. That'd be awesome. But I think, for the greater good of college golf, I think it's cool. I think what Coach Fields has done and we created out at La Costa, I hope that it will stick. And I think that's going to be a really, really cool thing, for the future. As far as, it's so funny. People always ask, I know you get asked this all the time. They ask about the transfer portal. There are lots of parts of it that I don't like and don't agree with. It doesn't matter what I think. We got to embrace it. You better figure it out. But we've been on the really good side of that. And I think it has provided a lot of different players, not just the ones that have come to us, have gone to lots of other places, players that have left us and gone to other places. I think that's been needed, and allows these players to forge their own path, and end up where they, quote unquote, should, at the end of the day. So again, not a great answer for you, but I'd say those two, probably the best things that I've seen.
That's good. That's a different take on the portal side of it, but I mean, obviously some schools are going to be a little more productive in the portal and do a better job in the portal than others. My only thing with the portal, and if we could change one thing, it would be a mandatory meeting between the coach, the player, his parents, and an administrator in a meeting just to talk it over, just to see if we couldn't that would give a kid another opportunity to deal with an adult, right?
Yeah, I know. And I totally agree. And I think why I don't have a bad taste in my mouth, with it so far is on the guys that we've had come in and the guys that we've had actually leave. They've been great experiences, and they've been from a player that maybe has gotten buried in our lineup, here, where it's on a really good team that, you kind of go, but I think for your last year or maybe 2 years, like, you should probably go to this other school that fits you a little bit better. And they've been great experiences, on both ends so far. I know not everyone has been in that same boat. And I think, if we get blindsided, by somebody that, we get a phone call from our compliance department and said, hey, Johnny's, in the transfer portal. I'm like, no, had no idea. That maybe that changes my view of it a little bit, but I think that's a really good idea by you. I mean, just, have to sit down and like you said, deal with an adult, have a little accountability and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, and the administrator would be the moderator that would keep everything civil and keep, like it should be. But anyway, transfer portal is our reality, and you need to either win it or not lose it in the transfer portal for sure. Tomorrow you're going to be called the commissioner of college golf. Tomorrow, I don you that tomorrow. What's one change you would make tomorrow, or what would something you'd put your first order of business? I'm gonna get this done. What would that be?
I go back and forth. I argue with myself on these things, all all the time because, and we kind of elaborated on it, a little bit earlier. I think that, okay, my number one thing that drives me crazy, the teams, the top 6 teams, and you have a cutoff date, that's fine, need to host NCAA regionals.
Beautiful. It
And
needs to happen. We've been talking about it for 25 years.
Yeah, and I know that it's a good idea. We know it's a good idea, but it really comes to the forefront of my mind when I try to explain it to like our basketball coach, or I try to explain it to our football coach, or any other sport. They go, "Oh, you got shipped out to Stanford." I'm just using it last year. You got shipped out to Stanford. Are they really good? I'm like, normally, but actually they're ranked. Last year they had a little bit of a down year, and they were ranked. I'm just making up 30th in the country. They're like, whoa, like, how is that possible? And again, not picking on Stanford, just wherever you go through. I think there needs to be a reward, and we always hear, well, maybe you can't get the hotel rooms, maybe you can't get this. Well, that's fine. If you want to punt on it, great. We'll go on down the line. But I just think there needs to be there needs to be a reward for playing well throughout the regular season and give you a little bit.
How much more would it validate our regular season?
It's big time.
I mean, if I felt in the fall that I was going to be one of the top 6 teams in the country, or had a chance to be, it would already be in place. The golf course said, no, you're going to have 13 teams here, not very many players, won't be too big a deal for the golf course. But you kidding me? You definitely want to host that regional, and you've earned it because of good play. And been talking about that forever, but we haven't made any headway on that one. You're the commissioner, get it done, okay?
Exactly. I'll do my best.
All right. In your career, you've seen tons of great players. You've coached tons of great players. I want to know, and I gave you a head start on this, so you might have been able to think about this: the best driver, the best approach player, best wedge player, short game, putter, grittiest competitor, maybe most creative. Let's start with best driver of the golf ball.
I'm going to go. I know this is a cop out. I know that it is. I'm going to go with the Koepka brothers. They were both so different, but like they're at the top, really at the top of the list. I mean, Chase wasn't nearly as powerful as Brooks and didn't hit it nearly as long, but I mean, they're few and far between were like, missed fairways. I mean, he's that type that would be leaning on it, and you're like, oh gosh, he's lost it way right, and it'd be like right center of the fairway, and so it wasn't nearly as far as where Brooks' ball may be, but it was always in the fairway. And then Brooks was really good driver of the golf ball. I mean, he didn't miss a whole lot of fairways, but gosh, I mean, even if he did, it was pretty far down there.
Who's the best approach player, best iron player?
Jackson Suber.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd say that. I think he's one of the best players approaching that I'd seen, and I knew he had played for you.
It's wild. I mean, like just standing there, there's so many shots that, you do it, thinking back through your memories, but there's so many shots that I just think back during his career that, I mean, like on par threes in a clutch situation, at the Jerry Pate over there in Alabama. Old Overton, 17th hole it's like a 4-iron, and there's nowhere to hit it.
Nowhere to hit it.
There's water all down the left that comes in all on the green and everything. The bunker to the right is dead. You're probably gonna chip it in the water, and they're hitting 4-irons into it. And that sucker, it'd be like one after another. That not only was it hitting the green, it was like tracking to go into the hole. There's so many shots like that I remember with them that, yeah, he was pretty darn good.
Who was your best wedge player?
Best wedge player. Joe, I had this in mind. I'm going to say Drew Kittleson.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really good. I can name him for a few different things, but yeah.
Kid had talent, didn't he?
Ooh, he had hands unbelievable.
So if I said best short game, is he in that conversation? Or you got anybody else?
Whoa, yeah, 100. Like best, I don't know if what you sent me had like best chipper or sand play, any of that, but that would be Drew. So yeah, best short game all around.
Best putter,
Braden Thornberry.
I was gonna say Braden. that spring of 2017, he made more putts than just about anybody I've ever seen.
It's wild.
Grittiest competitor, best competitor you've ever coached.
I don't think it's fair. I mean, it's to say current players a lot, but Michael Lasasso, he's up there. And when I thought about this question, I've had quite a few. Brooks was obviously a really good one. Chase is obviously really good. I mean, we've had a bunch of them. Michael is trending in that direction. I mean, he fights his tail off. That's been fun to watch. And again, he's got this year and next year left. So
don't let him leave.
I know. He's got to be right up there for sure.
Okay, last one is most creative player. Just the kind of unusual, different, made it look different. Creative golfer.
I'm giving you the same guys, and I'm sorry about this.
No, that's fine.
I think Drew Kittleson. It was just he would see that it was so fun walking with him. Jonas Blix would be up there. Jonas was really good in that regard too. Jonas liked to show off, so I think that's where a lot of the creativity came in. And those were guys. Here's the other thing: we get you and I get wrapped up into answering some of these questions, and it's not fair to some of our former players. I tend to gravitate towards the guys that I've walked with and that you spend the most time with. Like Brooks, I walked every hole with Brooks, so I got to see a lot more of Brooks than I did a Wesley Graham or any of these other guys. Jonas was the same way. I walked with Jonas, so got to see him. But yeah, that Drew, again, there are just certain guys that you have that as you go through and you're trying to see a pitch shot, maybe it's to an elevated green and you got some slope that you're looking this way. And I'm a pretty creative guy. Like that's just the way I played the game. And they would be looking they look over there, but they were looking in other directions as well. And Drew was pretty special in that regard. I mean, Braden, they're all great players. So I think all the greatest players probably try to do that.
I was asking for your hybrid best player in all these categories. There, obviously, you didn't give me a kid who was a 7 handicap in there anywhere. Didn't see a 7 handicapper.
No, exactly.
Well, listen, your upcoming schedule, but leading up to Sea Island. So what have you got left before the conference championship?
So we go to Vanderbilt for the Mason Rudolph in about a week and a half. Then we have Old Waverly, so down at Mississippi State, and then SEC. So we're getting back in. I'm sure just like you do. We try to get our guys out of their comfort zones, and certainly we want to play a lot of the same tournaments. You certainly always want to go to the Cabos of the world, but we try to get on different grasses. Like going up to the Hamptons. Playing that, getting out like we were in Palma Valley this past week, getting on some really fast Poana greens, because as you know, you never know where you're going to get shipped for a regional. And then our national championship is now out on the West Coast, and it's going to be on some bent Poana green. So that's not in our comfort zone here in Mississippi. But we need to get out and get uncomfortable. And like Cabo's not real comfortable. It's Bermuda grass, but desert golf, that we don't see that a whole lot here in Oxford. And then just like Palma Valley, that was an uncomfortable grass and environment for us to be on. So we've gotten knocked down just a little bit. Haven't played our best the last couple of tournaments, but I think we're about to start to get back into a little bit more of a comfort zone, and the goal is to get some confidence before we get over to Sea Island and start feeling good about ourselves again.
Well, Sea Island's a great place, obviously a wonderful golf course, but I would say arguably the best conference championship right now. Off and on, that's been, you could name different conferences, but if I'm just going to give these rankings out here, don't be daunted by this because you're in there. But Auburn is ranked number 1, University of Texas number 2, you guys are number 4, LSU 6, Oklahoma 7, Florida 11, Alabama 13, South Carolina 18, Vanderbilt 19, Tennessee 22, and Texas A&M 23. That's 11 teams in the top 23. Wow, Sea Island's going to be some fireworks, isn't it?
Yeah, and you take a team like Tennessee or some of these teams that are ranked in the 20s, and we've gotten our teeth kicked in the last couple of times we played them. Like, they can beat any of us at any point in time. Like, that's, you talk about a barn burner. I mean, like, you throw a lot of names in the hat and just pick 8 out, for who gets to match play. But that's why we're here. I mean, like, I love it. I wouldn't trade that for the world. And just again to get in the mix with those teams. I respect those coaches so much. So many great coaches in our conference. I mean, that's the other thing that I just look around and I'm like, wow, this is a lot.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Honestly, I didn't even think about that until I was preparing for this little chat that I was going to have with you. I knew that they had a bunch of high-ranked teams in there. And then I looked at it and I was going, my goodness, this is awesome. But the golf ball that you're hitting doesn't know that you're in a tournament with a bunch of high-ranked teams. It has no idea. I try to tell these young players the golf ball's only going to go where you tell it to go. Don't worry about anything else. Nothing else matters.
None of that matters, right? And at the end of the day, you can't make it situational. I mean, it's just, and they don't ask you. A big thing I'm going through with my team right now is like, quit your feelings. Like, nobody cares about feelings. Like, when you get done with a round of golf, please, the next time you walk into a scorer's tent and they go, okay, how's everyone's feelings? How are your feelings out there today? It means nothing. They ask how many. And, as you mentioned, how many times did you hit that white ball? And that's it. That's the only thing that matters.
It's a great equalizer in this game, isn't it? It just doesn't matter how old you are, who you are, where you're from, what course you're playing, what team you're on. None of that matters. You and your golf ball. That's what matters.
I agree.
Well, listen, Chris, I really appreciate you spending an hour with me. This has been great catching up, for one, because I haven't seen you in a while. I didn't get to go to Cabo, so I missed you there. But just kind of great to hear your story and how it all came about. I didn't know all of that, so I appreciate you sharing that. And I want to say congrats on a great year thus far, and I wish you the very best all the way to the national championship.
Well, I appreciate it, Coach. I appreciate you having me on, and look forward to seeing you in California.
All right, sounds great. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Coach.